magnificent mechanicals, crazy chronographs, ridiculous divers, super space-age materials, serious solar tech, just weird. Get ready for a journey through the history of Citizen's analog watch catalogue. After watching this video, you'll have a newfound appreciation of Citizen and its contributions to watchdom outside of their awesome digitals that I've covered in another dedicated video. They're so much more than just Ecodrive. Arising out of the 1918 Shikosha Watch Research Institute, the institute's first pocket watch, named the Citizen by Tokyo Mayor Shinpei Goto, based on a desire to make the watch available to all, would form the basis of the name the company would formally adopt in 1930, which was Citizen Watch Co., with their first manually wound wristwatch coming out in 1931 with a 5 beats a second Type F movement with a sub-second hand format, which would have some amends over the years and would be made up until 1967. Post-war, Aichi Yamada would take the reins of the company, which he would retain for 35 years, and start to set sights to the international market, and they would become more ambitious with new models. They would add a centre second with the Citizen A and New Citizen models from 1948. 1952's Citizen Triple Calendar was Japan's first wristwatch with a calendar. The month and day are in the windows under the 12 o'clock, with the date being indicated in an Oris pointer date style fashion. And in 1956, we see one of Citizen's famous marketing stunts with the Citizen Parashock, which involved dropping it from great heights from a helicopter in front of large groups of people at various locations. This watch had been designed to be shock resistant due to a system that protected the pivots of the balance wheel. Citizen have a very charming array of manual wind mechanical watches in their history. The Master would debut in 1959 with 19 jewels with the 910-913 movement, with the new Master movement coming out the following year with 19 and 21 jewel iterations. The Homer, I presume with Greek references rather than the other one, launched in 1960 with the 0200-0201 movement, with some funny sounding names like the Guppy, Special and Pansy, with later movements in the family being the 1962 Young Homer and Homer Date, and 1963's Homer Weekly. A different movement family is the Deluxe 2B 9200 starting in 1958 with 19, 21 or 23 jewels, and Super Deluxe with 23 or 25 jewels, with the latest Super Deluxe Date in 1965. Using a slightly lower grade was the Ace range starting in 1961, with the 1963 Super Ace. Going slimmer than Ace and using new movements with the 0500, 051 and 052, we see the Highline range with the 1961 23, 25 and 27 jewel versions, and the 1963 Super Highline and Highline Date, a model that gives us an idea of a philosophy that Citizen would later describe as the ER design philosophy, which was an obsession with going thinner and smaller and later deeper and higher, is the Diamond Flake in 1962. This was the thinnest movement at the time and beat the Seiko Gold Feather at 2.75mm, with the Diamond Flake Date being available in 1964. A sidebar on slimness is that you can see this focus on slim carrying over to the 1978 Exceed Gold 1mm movement in a battle that they started, but Seiko would beat shortly afterwards and ETA would place Switzerland back at the top with the Delirium 4. This continues more recently with 2002's Citizen Stiletto, the slimmest solar-powered watch at the time, and the later Stiletto Blade, with 2016's Ecodrive 1 taking it to new levels with a 1mm movement. But bringing it back in time, let's look at Citizen's cool watches that first deployed the alarm function in 1958 with the A980 caliber, with a special crown for setting the alarm, which provided a disc display reminder on the dial. A more affordable iteration was the college alarm version, and here is a cool one from 1971. Citizen has a rich range of automatic movements, which is the basis for some cool watches. Their first was the 1958 3KA movement in the simply named Citizen Auto, which would keep them in the market till they got a proper auto movement out, which is the Jet, starting with the 1961 0310. Remember, we're in the middle of the jet age here with the likes of the Boeing 707 launching a couple of years prior in 1958 and the Japan Airlines DC-853 in 1962, so the name and the names like Jet Rookie chimes with the times. The Jet Auto Data, Superjet and Superjet Auto Data were other watches within the Jet range. The next family is a name you'll see a lot throughout the Citizen range, including on digitals, which is 7, referencing days of the week due to the day display, with 1964's Auto Data 7 and the Auto Data 7 Monthly. 1965 brought the innovation of mineral crystal, which advanced on from acrylic. This design was recently reissued by Citizen in 2020, called the C7. The 7-star range was another iteration, with 1969 bringing the 7-star V2. Another range you see many variants of began in 1969, which was the Leopard, named because of its high beat rate, which had 28,800 beats per hour or 8 beats per second, as well as 36,000 beats per hour. The Super B8 was a model within this range, and there seems to have been other Big Cat inspired models with this Black Cheetah and Tiger range. Another series was was the Dandy 7 in 1969, as well as the Cutlass in 1968. In 1974, Citizen launched the Adorex range with the 8000 and 8050 high beat movement, with an interesting quirk in the 8000 model being that you can regulate it using the crown. Some quirky ones I'll throw in are this mid-60s square custom, as well as these rather curious sports watches including the 1970 Rally, Soccer, and yachting customs, as well as this line of Challenge Golf watches starting in 1972. The mechanical tradition does continue. For example, see the Series 8 line started in 2008, which is still going, as well as the Citizen range, which started in 1995, which adopted a new movement in 2010 with the 0910 caliber, which was their first new mechanical movement in around 30 years, with the 0200 caliber for 2021 being the first in 11 years. You'll notice the eagle reference a lot with Citizen, and this represents a category I've glossed over, but now we'll double click into, which are chronometers, that is, watches focused on the precision and accuracy of timekeeping with ratings from certified agencies. 1958 Super Deluxe would receive a good chronometer rating from the Swiss, which at the time was a good achievement. The Japan Chronometer Inspection Institute wouldn't be in place until 1968, so between these times Citizen would assess this themselves and would differentiate between standard, excellent, and glorious. The first to receive an excellent rating and their first true chronometer at -1 to +10 seconds was the 1962 chronometer. This would evolve into the Chronomaster range, with 1967 bringing two hand-wound versions with the 0920 and 1870. These would have an eagle medallion on the back, which was a signification of their accuracy. Their automatic Chronomaster models would also come out in 1967 using the 52 series, with 1968 bringing the Chronomaster Special. In 1971, there would be a chronometer within the Leopard brand, the Citizen Leopard Highness 36,000 chronometer, moving to 10 beats per second. The Glorious range from 1971 was amazing, with an average rating of -2 to +3 seconds per day, hitting Citizen's Glorious level, which exceeded the Swiss chronometer or COSC certification standard. These are very sought after watches. The Chronomaster brand is still going and is on the catalogue today as part of the Citizen range. Let's do chronographs. Now, Citizen had three main mechanical movements. The first was their hand-wound chronograph caliber 5702, launched in 1967, which would normally use the Recordmaster brand, and I've seen with the Rally Custom Recordmaster brand too. For automatic chronographs, 1971 brought the 8100 flyback chronograph, but probably the most iconic is the Citizen Automatic Challenge Timer chronograph, often referred to as Bullhead for obvious reasons, which was a vertical clutch chronograph with a column wheel and flyback function. This has recently been reissued in a few different variations and had peak of interest with its wearing by Brad Pitt on a bun strap in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. This chrono using the same caliber as the Bullhead I thought was super cool with the hexagonal subdials, and learning the lessons that other brands had in making links with motorsport, Citizen would too with their collaboration with the F1 brand Walter Wolf. Within the Quartz range we would see things such as the Quartz chronograph alarm in the Sport range listed in the 91 catalogue. Some more recent chronograph examples are this Citizen Racer and the Caliber 2100 Ecodrive model, as well as this Perpetual chrono. 1966 was Citizen's entrance into the world of electronic watches with the X8 electronic Cosmotron range that arose out of research from the Tokorozawa Technical Laboratory, with the Caliber 0800 25J being the first, I understand. Technology aside, there are some very funky dial and case variants in this range. I skipped it from the coverage earlier, but in 1969, Citizen did indeed do a chronometer version with the X8 Chronomaster 0802. Now forgive me, I'm going to go down a bit of a side alley, or alloy, here for a bit, but it has some cool stuff. As we'll see, Citizen innovated in the area of materials used, with an early instance being a black coating which they used to protect aluminium alloy cases, but the most notable is of course that Citizen was also the first watch manufacturer to deploy titanium in 1970's X8 chronometer, closely referencing it to the moon technology of the time. After a lot of work on the material to improve its finish, they launched the Atessa range in 1987 with strong hypoallergenic messaging. Here are some examples to give you a feel for the range, and ranges such as 1995's Titanium Club. Continuing with their research, they developed Duratect, which was a proprietary process for hardening material surfaces, which would be utilised in 2000 in the Aspect World Time. In 2006, we see Duratect MRK plus diamond-like carbon coating, or DLC, with the combo of titanium and Duratect hardened surface later being branded as Super Titanium. They've actually partnered with the private space exploration initiative Hakuto R to use this technology within their lunar vehicles on the moon. Citizen has also experimented with carbon in its watches, including 2010's Ecodrive dome in carbon, as well as plastics with the Interceptor range. But let's reverse back out of this ally and go to another satellite technology, which was the other electronic form of watch, the tuning fork watch, based on a joint agreement with Bulliver, who Citizen have been working with since 1960. Now, Citizen produced the high-sonic tuning fork watch range starting in 1972. There's some really nice dials in this 1974 catalogue. I actually covered the history of electronic and electric watches in more detail in another video, which I've listed on screen. Citizen Quartz first starts in 1973 with the models 8810B, 8811B, and 8821B. The 8819 would have the extra fine accuracy, or EFA, marketing, which meant that it was accurate within 5 seconds a month. More impressive, of course, is 1975's Citizen Crystron Mega 8650A, which would be accurate to within 3 seconds a year, that would chew batteries for breakfast and was available in solid gold. From at least 1979, I see references to Eagle Quartz, and a world's first I'll bring in is the Avalon Super Calendar range, which was apparently the world's first analog wristwatch with an electronic perpetual calendar. Let's turn to the more professional use-oriented watch, which in Citizen language I've categorised into marine, sky, and land. Not a diver, but an important first step was of course 1959's parawater model with 50 metres of water resistance, due to the use of rubber O-rings and modification of the crown, which underwent significant pushing through the marketing campaign designed to show its water resistance. First with the watch being attached to a boat by a buoy and dragged to shore, and the second being part of an ocean current survey being conducted by the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force and the Tokyo University of Marine Science and Technology, where over 100 parawater watches were put in buoys in the sea, and those that found them could keep them. The spirit of this watch was revived in the 2020 Kuroshio 64 limited release. Folks from the excellent online reference site Sweephand and Vintage Citizen Watches believe that the first diver was likely the 1962 Jet Auto Data with the 1120 automatic movement with 120 metres water resistance. Apparently the holy grail for many is the early 60s 200 metre water resistant Skin diver using the same movement. The first 150 metre diver using the 1150 movement was the Super Auto Date Professional in 1963, and we'd have a 100 metre range with 1965's 7-star diver range using a twin crown and the 5270 or 52 series movement. 1968 would bring the 150 metre crystal date with the 5410 movement. An interesting example is this diving style watch with the alarm function. In 1970 we'd see these cool challenge diver models, which I think would really scratch that 70s vintage diver itch for a lot of people. And we start to get serious with the 500 metre water resistant chronomaster chronometer, complete with cool eagle emblem and 33 joules with caliber 5420. Within the world of Quartz, you can see the water resistant models marked PW, I presume parawater, in the 1977 catalogue, including this 500 metres Quartz diver. Of course, 1982 is when Citizen released the bonkers 1300 metre professional diver, Just Mad. One of my favourites, as many models would have a digital element, and I've covered it in my other video which was exclusively focused on digitals, but 1985 did of course bring the fan favourite, the Citizen Aqualand. Examples from the early 90s that give a flavour of the range are the 300 metre Quartz professional diver from the 91 catalogue, as well as the sport range, which included 300 metre and 200 metre Quartz divers with fun straps that had ND or no decompression markings on them, and fly for free human gear models with open water bezels. In 1992, Citizen listed a very cool 800 metre professional diver, and purely analogue versions of the Aqualand were in the 1993 catalogue. The classic is the automatic 1993 NY004, an affordable favourite using the 8203 caliber with an 8 o'clock crown and apparently a bezel inspired by the pufferfish or fugu. It was tested by the Comando Subacqueo in Cursory of Italy to 500 metres, and you can find models with dials marked Marina Militaire. There was a very nice reissue of this in 2018, which I think looks great. You can see all sorts of Quartz Marine models later in the 90s, and here is a cut from the 1999 catalogue. To give a flavour of more recent items within the Citizen Marine lineup, here are some examples. The very basic model is the Citizen Promaster Diver. The nicknamed Autozilla and Solarzilla are Citizen's heavy-hitting 1,000 metre diver watches. This iteration of the Aqualand is classic, a GMT version which looks very bold, with this GMT version being a bit more muted. And how about this later Promaster 200 metre mechanical diver launched in 2021 with a magnetism-resistant movement? It's fair to say Citizen have a few dive watches. If we think of the land range as being for those out in the mountains and such, and the great outdoors, the 1989 Alitchron in the Promaster series is the place to start, with a range of chronograph watches in the 1995 Promaster range. Lots of evolutions of cases and bezels have been done, and in 1999 there were some cool collaborations with Robert Swan in the Mission Antarctica range, as well as the Yellowstone National Park series. More recent models in the land range are the Promaster Tough and this more recent Promaster land model, and the Alitchron itself received a new design in 2013 with an analog analog altimeter and compass that can apparently go as high as the top of Mount Everest. And here are some other land selections from the most recent catalogue. In the 1970s, Citizen did do some aviator-style watches with the caliber 51-1811 that had an inner rotating bezel, but most of the cool ones are in the ProMaster Sky range. The earlier Aerocron models had the digital display, and this series I cover elsewhere, but here are some more general analog ProMaster Sky range models from 1995. The Navihawk and Skyhawk ranges have some analog iterations, as well as the Citizen ProMaster Nighthawk in a couple of different iterations. After an initial prototype in 1974, in 1976, Citizen launched the world's first solar watch with analog hands, the crystron solar cell with caliber 8629 7J. By 1986, things had moved on with cells being thinner and would also be able to leverage indoor light, with power cells lasting longer, which made things somewhat more feasible to create an everyday watch, which Citizen did with a model that could run for 200 hours on one full charge. The first Ecodrive watches in 1995 used caliber 7878, where the cells could be underneath the dial, which just had to be slightly translucent to enable charging of the cells, and this would be sprinkled throughout their range. Another feather in Citizen's solar cap would be the claim to be the world's first light-powered diving watch in 1998 with the ProMaster Aqualand Ecodrive. There's been so much innovation with Ecodrive that I can only put a few of the examples here, but I'll include 1998's Ecodrive Duo, Citizen using their own version of the Seiko Kinetic automatic quartz alongside light power, 1999's Ecodrive Thermo, which uses the so-called Seebeck effect, where a difference in temperature between your wrist and the surrounding environment generates an electromotive force that can charge your power cell. 2000 brought the fully transparent solar cell with the Ecodrive Vitro technology, which meant that cells no longer had to be visible at all. The Ecodrive Eyes, presented in 2010 and launched in 2013, was a funky one, which was the world's first watch to feature a ceramic 3-dimensional dial. And of course, bringing the Ecodrive to the height of high horology, there's the Ecodrive minute repeater with perpetual calendar. Who needs a Holy Trinity watch? Finally, for crazy accurateness, the 2019 Ecodrive Quartz Caliber 0100, announced at Basel World 2019, had an accuracy of +1 to -1 seconds per year without radio control. Bonkers. Talking of radio control, a big innovation for Citizen was them being the first watch manufacturer to deploy multiband in a radio-controlled watch, with the Citizen Multiband with the super lovely antennae down the middle of the watch. Within their Atessa range, they claim to be the first fully metal radio-controlled watch with inbuilt antennae and a fun disc for city selection in the model released in 2009. In 2011, Citizen introduced the Ecodrive satellite wave range, which received time signals from the nearest available satellites, which would be made thinner and faster to synchronize with the F100 version in 2014, with 2015 bringing the satellite wave GPS range, which obtained your position from GPS satellites, a method for acquiring the signal fast, and a thin form factor, with this black titanium version being particularly cool. A slightly different technology, which is one of the final pieces in the puzzle of the never lose time armory, is Bluetooth. And in 2012, Citizen launched the Citizen Proximity Bluetooth, which was the first light-powered watch with Bluetooth, including call, text, and calendar notifications and phone finder function. Here is one of the more modern Bluetooth-enabled watches. And on to the last group of watches, those with a more fashion-centric or novelty bent. Citizen would do a licensed deal to produce Yves Saint Laurent in the 1970s, as well as this fun range of Pierre Cardin watches. The Club Le Mer brand, I always read as Club Lamer, with other more fashion-oriented range. There are many more, including the Lighthouse range, more sub-brands than I can possibly include here. For the youth segment, we'd have the sub-brands like Independent, with some truly mad watches, and today Citizens still do some fashion-licensed watches such as Paul Smith. They also do a good trade in collaboration watches with things such as Final Fantasy, Pokemon, Naruto, Marvel through the Disney contract. I have no idea what this is, and of course, Star Wars. And that's it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. For digital fans, consider clicking on the link to the left to watch my Citizen digital video. For analog fans, you should learn about Seiko Kinetic and amazing tech. And with that, I hope you have a great rest of your day.